Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Melanie Campbell. I'm the president and CEO of the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation and convener of the Black Women's Roundtable. And it is my pleasure to welcome you to tune in to our virtual media briefing to release the results of our 2020 election exit poll. That is a national poll that we conducted during early voting and during election day, November 3rd, in 10 states across the country to gauge the issues that were of importance to Black voters, as well as what their concerns were for the who they were going to select for president, why they voted for not who they voted for, but why they voted the way they did, their voting experiences, and other really top line issues. So today, and then also you will hear from, after our media briefing on the results, you will hear from a panel from Georgia, because we know the election is what? It's not over yet. Georgia has a Senate, U.S. Senate race, or races, two Senate seats up for the state of Georgia that are in a very, very important Senate race that will decide the balance of power in the U.S. Senate. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to now introduce you to our panelists who will provide the results of our poll. So I'll turn it over for presentation to my sister Holly Holliday, Esquire, who is the NCBCP Unity 2020 campaign manager and data advisor, as well as Dr. Elsie Scott, founding director of the Ronald W. Walters Leadership and Public Policy Center at Howard University, and who is also a executive board member of the National Coalition on Black Voter Participation's Board of Directors. So ladies, we turn it over to you. Tell us what you found out.
Thank you so much, Melanie. Well, I'm going to get us started, and then I'm going to kick it to Dr. Scott to talk about the issues. So we'll start with the slide presentation now. There it is coming up. And we can go ahead to the first slide, to the next slide, please. And I want to just say, you know, this has been our biggest survey sampling to date. We were able to collect over 4,345 surveys, as Melanie indicated, in 10 different states, including a deep dive in the South, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, Virginia, and then, of course, some of those traditional states that we've been working in for many years: Ohio, Maryland, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Our samples came from people who voted at early vote at the polls, as well as on election day, as well as a few from absentee ballot respondents. What we found, our survey includes nearly 2/3 of our survey respondents were Black women, nearly 1/3 were Black men, and we even found 2% that self-identified as transgender, non-conforming, or other. We do this survey for three primary purposes. First, it's important for us as a leader in the civic engagement space to track Black voter experience at the polls and to monitor what that looks like. Secondly, it's important for us to be able to engage around issues that are important for the 2020 presidential election. And finally, and most importantly, we want to be able to identify those priorities for Black voters and what they want from the president as well as the Congress. Next. So some new things in this survey, I've already talked about one, and that is we doubled our survey size, more than doubled actually. We also put intentional emphasis on surveying not just women this time, but men. We added additional states. We're now up to 10 states. We also expanded and dug deeper into our issue questions. These questions allowed us to create a more longitudinal analysis across not only what we've done in previous exit polls, but connecting it to our BWR essence poll that we generally do prior to the election. Also, understanding that there would be a need to really understand some key electorates. We over-indexed in Georgia, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. So I'm going to start off by giving you a few highlights around our voting experience, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Elsie Scott to talk about the issues. So just on a voting experience side, we saw more than 87% had a positive or very positive voting experience, and many reported having no problems at the polls. However, those that did have problems mostly cited long wait times of an hour to 4 hours, and having to show ID. We don't want to gloss over these problems because we know that these are the kinds of things that prevent people or inhibit people from being able to cast their ballots. Finally, we note that overwhelmingly, we are still seeing very consistent in every exit poll that we've done that Black respondents across the board are mostly motivated out of a sense of responsibility. Although in this particular poll, we did find that candidate motivation, either for a specific candidate or against a specific candidate, were fairly equal. Motivation for a candidate at 11.57% and against a candidate at 10.7%. So not even a full 10 percentage points difference there. And then ballot initiatives this year did not play a significant motivation role. Only 3.58% of respondents noted that they were motivated by ballot issues. I'm just going to show you a few quick charts before kicking it to Dr. Scott. Just to give you the layout, as you can see, as I mentioned, overwhelmingly positive experiences. Next chart. And here's the total breakout of the problems, again, with wait times and ID being the most significant. Next chart, final chart, and then what they voted on. And this, again, just want to emphasize that Black voters across the board, across demographics, strongly continue to say that they vote out of a sense of responsibility, not because of a ballot issue or any particular candidate. And it's important for us to understand that in terms of when we're reaching out to voters and what motivates them to actually take a voting action. All right, that's all for voter experiences. Dr. Scott, what did we find out about the issues?
Good afternoon, everybody. First issue we looked at was what Black voters want from the next president of the United States. And this is interesting because often our presidential candidates don't even worry about what we want from the next president. They're just trying to get us to go to vote. The number one issue for Black voters is they want the next president to address a plan to reduce structural racism. And this was 74% of the respondents. So we see that racism is still considered to be a major problem and something that Black voters think should be addressed by the president of the United States, not just leave it to locally elected officials. So this is something that we're glad to present to the new administration that's coming in. And this has been a priority ever since we started looking at racism in 2016. And when we compare this to the Essence poll, we find something very similar. Statistically tied at number 2 at 61.8% and 63.3% respectively were policing, a criminal justice reform, and a plan to eradicate COVID-19. As we know that COVID-19 was not around when we did this poll 4 years ago, but we see that it has risen to the number 2 slot of concerns of what people want to see the President of the United States address. That along with policing, and we have spent a summer of demonstrations and people trying to focus attention on the problems with the criminal justice system in the United States. And the third priority is protecting the safety net, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. There's a lot of noise during the campaign about the future of Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. 58.7% of the respondents saw this as a priority issue they would want to see coming from the President of the United States. And then the fourth priority was reducing taxes on low or middle income people. That came in at 47.6%. And there are some that say that they have reduced taxes, but we find that a lot of our respondents don't feel that the taxes have been reduced for low and middle income people. And when we looked at this across gender and across age, we found similar findings. Nothing statistically different in terms of the ideas or the responses of people based on gender or age. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, I voted for the presidential candidate that committed to the following issues, and we've just covered these issues, but you can see this in the graphic form. We talked about the top three, and then we added the other two, so you could see what the respondents said. Next. Okay, we then asked them the top three issues facing the Black community. And the top three issues were racism, a rise in hate crimes, affordable health care, the criminal justice system and police reform, and COVID-19. So we see some of the same issues that we want the president to address, or that the Black community wants the president to address. We find that these are the three issues that people are living with every day and facing in their communities, and they are ready for the government to address these issues. Next. Okay, then we asked them the top three issues threatening Black families. So we started with the community, and then we're going to bring it right to our households. What are the top three issues? And again, we have concern about a rise in hate crimes and racism, COVID-19, the high cost of housing, and gun violence. As you see that we added housing and gun violence, and the high cost of housing could be tied to COVID as we look at the economic impact of COVID and many people losing their homes as they lose their jobs. So this is an agenda that is out there for the next administration to deal with, because these are some of the same issues that people are concerned about from their families, for their communities, as well as the issues they want to see addressed by the president. So we want to thank all the people who participated in the survey. There were some concerns as we went into the survey that, people were being stressed in terms of getting out to the polls and how you're going to vote and all the suppression issues. But we are very happy that many, many people participated in the survey because they wanted to be heard. And that's what this is all about. People want to be heard, and now they want to see action. So we want to thank NCBCP and Unity 20 for again sponsoring this survey.
Thank you, Holly. And thank you, Dr. Scott, for giving us that presentation. I'm going to take a second to see if there are any questions. And if you do, if you could put those questions for the media in the chat. And as we give that a couple of minutes, I wanted to also do my own follow-up questions as your moderator. I know that we conduct a Black Women's Roundtable poll with Essence every year that was released in September. And can you go a little deeper about some of the top line things that you saw that were similar? Because we know that poll that we released in September are, for instance, Black women from, all demographics, so young to seasoned, right? Uh, and also have more middle income, some more income, middle income to higher income brackets. And then also in this poll we had with the exit poll, what were some of the similarities that you saw? Because we know there were more cross demographics as far as income brackets, education, and the like. Were there any one or two things that you want to share? Because we know this is our preliminary results, and we're going to go deeper over the course of the next few weeks around different demographics that to get a better understanding for developing our agenda moving forward. So Elsie or Holly or both.
Well, we found a lot of similarities. And some people have said in the past with the Essence poll that you all are mainly looking at upper middle class women and you're looking at women. And so this poll, we have people from across the income spectrum. We have people across the gender spectrum. And so we again found that there's this big concern about racism in this country, systemic racism. When we had people doing the campaign that were saying that there's no such thing as systemic racism. And so all our polls are showing this across the last few years, in addition to just looking at this particular poll. We have found it across that people are concerned. The only difference in the findings this time, but it's not a difference in the Essence poll findings, that we have COVID now, that COVID is right in our face in the Black community, and that so many people are being affected by it. In the past, we had a lot of responses around healthcare, but we see COVID has tied into this whole healthcare issue anyway. So we find a lot of consistency that the Black community's responses have not really changed. We did find a few differences based on age, but one of the interesting things we found in the Essence poll this year was some similarities between the older Black women and the younger, the Gen Zs, as opposed to the millennials. So we want to drill down and look at that a little harder the next time around. Ollie, was there anything else that you wanted to bring up?
You covered it, and I see we have a number of questions in the Q&A, so I'm gonna let Melanie go ahead and moderate those questions.
Thank you so much, Holly, for letting me moderate. Appreciate that, ma'am. So we have a couple of questions from Trini Williams. The first question is, was there any concern for needing the U.S. president to help spur economic growth in the community?
Well,
either one.
I think that right now people are dying. People are in hospitals. People are worried about their families. So they are concerned about economics, but first and foremost, they want to deal with the health issues. They want to stop this pandemic in their communities. And many of them have been laid off. They do want to see, when we talk about addressing the plan for a COVID response, they're not just talking about the health issues. They're also talking about bringing their small businesses back, getting people back to work. So we didn't drill down and ask them specifically, what are you talking about, what you want to see in the plan? We didn't have time. When you're doing an exit poll, you don't have time to stop people to ask them to go in details. But, we can assume that when people say they want a plan for COVID-19, they're also looking at the economic aspects of it.
The other thing that Elsie, I know that they talked about what was high on the list was not as high as the top three, but income inequality issues were also there.
And
Holly,
I was gonna say, I think that's why we did see issues such as housing. And I just think overall, I've been with the coalition since 2014. This research certainly predates me, but since then, we've seen a shift more intently towards life or death issues, less aspirational and more about things that really impact whether or not we can live. And sometimes I think we are immune to the fact that we see these COVID numbers rising. Those are real people and real individuals. And I think this poll definitely reflects that people are thinking about those bread and butter issues on how we can make it to the next day.
Okay. Thank you. Next question from Trini, and then following her, I see Deborah. We see you. Will from USA Today will come to you after this next question, and that is, how will this survey poll be used? Any specific plans to use the survey to build from awareness to results? I will start off and say yes, we will be, and we are. We use this data not just for research purposes, but we at the National Coalition with our Black Women's Roundtable policy table. It helps us to develop our agenda, our policy agenda for 2021. It's helping us to engage incoming administration, things that we want to ask the incoming administration with the Biden, President-elect Biden and VP Harris, and also what our 118th Congress agenda will be, as well as because we went deeper in states, our states will use this data. Our leaders in the states who lead our affiliates and our state partners will also be able to utilize this work for their agenda on a state and local level. Holly or Elsie, and I know Elsie, we have more to come if you wanted to add something.
I would just add one thing, and this is a longitudinal thing. As we've continued to see racism top the charts, healthcare top the charts, and economic issues top the charts, it is good to see the president-elect and vice president-elect reflect these priorities as their top four, amongst their top four priorities. And I think it shows how the power, the Black political power base, especially amongst Black women, is building.
Next question is from Deborah Berry with USA Today. Says, you mentioned that you added men to this survey. Did you find a difference between what men and women list as their top priorities? And do the groups plan to submit or present the findings to the new administration? Deborah, definitely yes, we are, but also want to see Elsie or Holly want to respond about the men and women.
Well, just we're still drilling down with some of the crosstabs, but just as a cursory review, as we looked at the top issues, we did not find a lot of difference between the responses of the men and the women. But as we go deeper into the data, if we find those differences, we can bring them out.
And I would just, to the second question, absolutely, we make our findings public. They will be available on our website, and we will do additional briefings as requested to make sure that folks are using the data to impact and to empower Black communities. So absolutely, and the administration is part of that.
Okay, and one last question that's in the Q&A part of the chat. See if I get this right. Okay, from Trini Williams again, and Trini says, when is the next poll going to take place? Well, we would definitely be doing another poll, our Power Assisted Vote poll in 2021. We also, in March, will release our broader report. This also helps us in our annual report on the state of Black women that will come out during Women's History Month. And there'll be more information that go detail about solutions, which is what that our report is really about, addressing some key issues. And this helps us to focus, our energies around what our priorities would be in that annual report in March. And then in the summer, we definitely will do our plan to do our next poll in the next 6 months. And I think that are all the questions. If you all have any closing remarks you'd like to make, ladies, and then once you do that, we will move to just making sure there's nothing in the other chat, and I don't see anything. Any closing remarks, and then we'll move to our next panel. That will be a discussion around the Georgia Senate race from our August panel from the state of Georgia. So
I'd just like to say that Dr. Ronald Walters started us in this direction of doing exit polling. And I'm very proud that I now run the center in his name at Howard, and hoping that he would be pleased with Mel and me that we have continued. But one thing that a difference from when I first started working with the polls is that there was a lot of emphasis on voter suppression, and a lot of our issues were around problems people had with the polls. So it's very good to see in the findings in this poll that most people did not have a lot of problems at the polls. And we have to commend all of the people who volunteered to be poll watchers this time, and all the local governments that tried to make it convenient for people to vote. And I think that's one of the reasons why we have people reporting fewer problems with the actual experience of voting than they did in the earlier polls.
I can't add much to that, Dr. Scott. That's awesome, and I think ending on a note from Dr. Walters, who was also my professor, is a good way to end.
Thank you so much, Dr. Elsie and Holly, for that awesome presentation. So we will now move to our panel discussion with that Holly will serve as the moderator of, that is focused on the impact of the Black vote in Georgia and the critical importance and significance of the Georgia Senate runoff and other races that will take place on January 5th, 2021. So at this time, I will turn it over to my sister Holly to moderate panel 2. And thank you for all the media that is on and for staying on. I know you have questions for our panel in Georgia as well. And so fasten your seatbelts. I'm going to be glued to the listening side of this conversation, as we all know that Georgia is all eyes on Georgia. And so thank you to all the panelists as well for your leadership in joining us today.
All eyes on Georgia, and I am happy to be the moderator of this second panel. We will be discussing the impact of the Black vote in Georgia and its critical importance as we look to the Georgia runoff. And it is a statewide runoff, which will include both U.S. Senate candidates as well as the Public Service Commission and other races. I'm going to start by introducing our panel and bringing them in one at a time. And I'm going to start with Helen Butler, who serves as the Executive Director for the Georgia Coalition for the People's Agenda and convener of the Georgia Black Women's Roundtable. Felicia Davis, who joins us as the convener in Clayton County, Georgia, BWR, and the Executive Director of the HBCU Green Fund. We have Ariel Singleton, who joins us from Georgia Stand Up and also is part of our Black Youth Vote Georgia State Coordinator. And we also have joining us Jared Sawyer Jr., another Black Youth Vote State partner and part of the HBCU Green Fund. Welcome, Georgia. There have been some fantastic things happening in Georgia, and we may have a few others that will join us if they can, but we're going to dig into this conversation because, as has already been said, all eyes and attention are now on Georgia. I feel like the center of the universe is happening in Georgia related to this runoff. But before we get to that, we've got to talk about where we've been and some of the successes and the expanded Black political power that's been built in Georgia. And specifically want to hear about some of the organizing lessons that we've learned and the historic Black voter turnout that has happened. And we know and understand and want to hear from these issues that you think were important in Georgia to Black voters. So we got a lot to talk about, and we're going to get it all in. I'm going to start with the young people today, and our Black Youth Vote state leaders, Ariel and Jared. So let's start with this. What do you believe worked to motivate and fuel Black youth voter turnout in Georgia? And feel free to please share if the impact of some of your BYV, Black Youth Vote organizing work. And we'll start with Ariel.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's an honor and a pleasure. I do believe that it is the mobilizing and the organizing that BYV, Black Women's Roundtable, NCBCP have all done all together to actually get that awareness out and to get individuals pumped up and fueled, ready to vote. But even amongst that is no question, and it's no surprise about what the climate is, especially in Georgia being a deep South state. It's no surprise in seeing the climate. So being able to actually see effective work and effective organizing actually make a change and actually encourage individuals to get out and vote, I think that's a lot that had to do with encouraging people to get out to vote. I think it was very, to me, it was just so amazing to see that African Americans have nearly twice as many have voted this year than in 2014. And even just young people, period, have increased 500%. And just to see those numbers of Black youth that actually took their responsibility to get out and vote. So it shows, it's the question answers itself. Did it work? Yeah, it did work.
All right. Well, that's the kind of energy we need. Jared, what has been your experience?
I absolutely agree with everything that Ariel said. Black Youth for Organizing, NCBCP, the Unity Campaign, all of our organizations working together, organizing on the grounds here in Georgia definitely worked. 350%. I think what we have to consider is that after being locked up in the house with COVID-19 pandemic from February or so all the way to May, and then this sweltering summer of unrest in response to the killing of George Floyd and several other issues of racial injustice. So many young people specifically started to ask the question when it comes to justice and freedom and equity, does it work for us to achieve that within the system or out of the system? And what we started to see was that a lot of young people became aware of the fact that they could not just, that voting is a piece of it, but that it is the piece that we can all be a part of. Everybody's not going to be a protester. Everyone's not going to be someone that's out in the streets. But one thing that we can all do, respectively, is we can all get out there and vote. And it's just a part of the democratic process. And I think that the more that young people in Georgia started to see, as we were telling people, hey, you've already voted, you can become a poll worker. Hey, you've already voted, you can get with us in this election protection movement. It was so spirited, this election in Georgia. And I don't believe that spirit has died out, but I believe that it's getting ready to ignite a new fire.
Absolutely. Let me tell you, that just makes me all warm inside to think about what's about to happen. And what I love is connecting to the poll that we just did. It really validates that even young people see voting as a responsibility, and that once they understand that, they really connect to that. Well, we can't let the young people have all the fun. So let me get Helen and Felicia in on this conversation. As our state leaders, this has been a long time coming. We know this is not a result of work that has happened in just this cycle. And we know that you all have been at the forefront of Georgia's Black women's leadership. Please tell us what the Black women have done and what they have built in Georgia and what led us to this moment. Helen, I'm gonna start with you.
Well, thank you, Holly, and it's good to be here with young folks. But I will say that has been a journey, and we have been on this journey to be engaged, but Black women have always been one of the highest demographics ever turn out in Georgia. We understand the importance of public policy, what it means to our communities. We have Black women that are leading this Justice March. We have, like Felicia Davis in Clayton. We have Deborah Scott in Atlanta. We have people like Jeanette Lucas down in Albany, Georgia. We have Diana Cofield in LaGrange, Georgia. We have Linda Lloyd in Athens, Georgia. We have Anna Dennis with Common Cause that's working with us on that. I mean, we have Tamika Atkins, who heads the Pro Georgia table. It's all of these wonderful Black women that are in the community making it happen, that really has been at the forefront and been doing this a long time. I've been doing this for over 20 years, so I guess I'm the senior person on this group. But it really means that we've had a struggle, but we've been here to protect that right to vote. We've registered, we've educated, we've given rides to the polls, we've held our elected officials accountable. We've introduced legislation that we wanted to improve our communities. We protected that right to vote, like Jared said, with having those election protection monitors, having poll workers that we oriented, and before we send them over to boards of elections to use. But we've had some great wins, and we always talking about the top wins, but we don't realize that we had 3 Black women who are elected county commission chairs, right? We turned over 3 district attorneys in Georgia, right? So we now have 4 Black sheriffs that were elected this cycle. So those are the kinds of changes that we made down ballot. We have state representatives, state senators that we have elected. And by we, I mean the people, but the highest demographics have always been Black women. And we turn out.
Man, if that doesn't make you feel good, I don't know what does. And thank you so much for your work. You know, you talked about, we've been saying as part of this work that justice is on the ballot. And when you hear about those district attorney races, and you hear about those sheriff races, and you hear about those state lawmaker races, and how we are now seeing Black people and Black women in particular take those mantles up, we see very clearly how justice is on the ballot. But what other local issues are motivating Black women? And I want to get Felicia in here, and Errol, please respond to that as well.
So here in Clayton County, thank you, Holly. And also I want to recognize Helen Butler for also building statewide infrastructure. Because a lot of what happens and the changes that we see underway are a function of having infrastructure. And but with that, here in Clayton County, which is a working class, working essential worker type county. And so issues that came out in our exit poll around COVID, around security, around job security, and just family security really resonate here in Clayton, where people tend to have a little less income than the average in Georgia. So when the economy is hard hit, Clayton County is hit harder. So that is certainly something, and it makes it tough for organizing and turning people out. But more and more people understand how their vote is connected to what will happen in the economy, whether it's a short-term stimulus or a long-term opportunity for jobs and et cetera. And I would do a nod to stand up. I'm sure when they come back in, prior to COVID, they were known for training in a way that would prepare people to be ready to get to climb that job ladder. And so now, thanks to Helen, we are mobilizing statewide, but we have quite a challenge in front of us.
Absolutely. Errol, let me get you in here. What are the issues that you're seeing motivate Black women in Georgia locally?
Yes, as far as in Black women, mobilizing them locally, like Ms. Helen Butler stated, you know, these are Black women leaders, especially such a time as this in Georgia, seeing these Black women leaders who have been been there. They've been there, but now just seeing that mantle being taken up, you know, as women, they are the stronghold of their communities and their households. They're the mothers, they're the daughters, the sisters. So just seeing that, seeing how they mobilize them, how Black women mobilize amongst each other, that has been the key thing that have driven us to continue to mobilize and to organize, especially when I mean, it's no surprise that we know as Black women that we have held up that mantle. We've always been the backbone, especially when it comes to voting, but also being able to use that and leverage that to instill in Black youth, instill in other individuals and other Black and brown communities, just how much your power is, especially when it comes to not only your presidential elections, but your state races, the runoffs, the Public Service Commission, a lot of these things that happen that affect you directly. These are the things that have caused Black women to be able to mobilize even more and at greater numbers more than ever.
Well, we see that Black women have showed up and showed out, but we're not going to leave out Black men. We're not going to do it. So, Jared, as the man on the panel, we want to hear from you. Why have we seen these high turnouts amongst Black men? What do you believe is motivating them? Because they also turned out in record numbers.
Absolutely. I was a part of an event over at Morehouse College, and the president of Morehouse made a statement. He said, you know, Black men, especially older Black men, may not in the past have gotten out to vote as expected. However, when young Black men make the appeal to say, we need our elder Black men in the community to do this for us, that we're counting on you, that they will get out there and get out the vote. And I believe that there's been an intergenerational conversation and intergenerational actions that have happened between, you know, Black men my age and people my father's age, my grandfather's age, and just really having these honest conversations around the state. Like, look, I'm counting on you to make sure that the Black agenda is pushed forward. Don't let me be out there by myself. But I need you.
That is amazing. And we are so happy to hear that. So we got to bring our folks back into this conversation, because while we know we have a good foundation, let's face it, everybody's attention is based on this runoff. So we got to spend some quality time talking about what's going to happen in this runoff. And can we repeat the success? Can we keep this turnout up? So here we go. This is just the open-ended question to every panelist, because this is the question on everybody's mind. What is the strategy? What is the strategy to get Black voters out again to vote in the same numbers? And this is in urban, suburban, and rural communities. We just need to know, what do we need to do? What's the strategy to get them out? Helen, as the statewide person, you got to tell us, what's the strategy?
Well, Holly, we're going to use every strategy that's in our toolkit. We're going to begin with voter registration that goes through December the 7th. We're going to do phone banking, texting, relational organizing, whatever it takes to get them back out, we're doing it. We're going to do lid drops all over. We're going to have big canvassing teams. I know in the 7 offices that I have across the state, we're already gearing up to make sure that we have our canvassing teams ready to deploy. We have a team ready to do nothing but phone banking and texting. We have a team that's ready just to drop that literature where we need it. Not just in our canvas areas, but wherever events we're at. Wherever we go, we are helping to educate. We're holding candidates forums. We're going to make sure that people know the candidates. Our door hanger that we do as a part of our lid drop has the pictures of the candidates on it. It has on the reverse side what issues those candidates will be impacting. So people know they've got to use their power. Hashtag use their power. Hashtag do it again. We've got to do it again. You know that song, Do It Again, huh? Let's do it again. We're going to do it again. We've got to have that turnout. So we are needing poll workers. We're needing poll monitors to protect that right to vote, to make sure that when people go vote, they won't encounter barriers. And if they do, we'll have resources right there at their polling location so that they don't have to leave without voting. We want them to cast a vote that is not provisional, but a regular vote. We want them to use absentee voting. We're teaching them how to use that. I just left a senior facility where we were assisting them with filling out their applications so that they can get their ballots, so that they know they can vote safely. They don't have to be in the street. And if they have a problem, they have our numbers. They can call us. We're going to follow up anyway to make sure they get on. We're doing ballot chase still with those rejected absentee ballots, with those provisional ballots that we didn't get before November the 3rd, that we now can get as a result of the Secretary of State releasing the information. We're going to actually go cure those with those people to make sure that they don't have any problem when they show up at the polls. And I know Felicia and Ariel and Jared are going to tell you all about the young things they're doing with the celebrities and all that other good stuff. But that's the overall plan. We're going to do it again. Hashtag do it again and use our power.
Hashtag do it again. It doesn't seem like you're going to get any rest anytime soon. And thank you for that. So you queued up the young people. So let's hear from them. All right, Jared, Ariel, what's the plan?
So I love that hashtag do it again. I think that young people are fired up. I think after watching the election results and seeing how we're just waiting for county to county to, report their counting, then young folks said, oh my goodness, my vote really does count. So I believe that if there were any young people that were out there that did not vote in the November 3rd election, that something is just triggered in their mind and said, oh no, I'm going to make that change and I'm not going to let January 5th come by and me not be a part of the democratic process. That said, we understand that there are, I believe, somewhere near like 30,000 young people in the state of Georgia that will be turning 18 between now and January the 5th. And we are stepping out of Atlanta. Many of us, I know myself and Ariel as an example, are based here in Atlanta. We do have a lot of different things going on throughout the state. And over the course of the past 6 or 7 months, a lot of that has been virtual. But now we're getting ready to take advantage of the offices that Ms. Helen just mentioned, and the cities like LaGrange, Albany, Macon, Athens, Valdosta, and starting on November the 28th, we're going to be doing a Black Youth Vote canvassing caravan tour, in which we're going to go into these cities. We're going to move the concentration outside of just urban Atlanta. We're going to go into suburban Atlanta. We're going to go into suburban Georgia. We're going to go to rural Georgia. We're going to canvass the community. We've already started to build these virtual relationships with people who have vested interests with young people in the community, in those suburban and rural areas, youth pastors, people who lead youth organizations, leaders within the city that are young. We're going to be getting out the vote and making sure that we're getting pledge cards signed by young people in each of these cities. We're pretty much getting ready to hit the road between November the 28th and December the 13th, where we're going to actually culminate it with a huge gospel concert, a virtual gospel inspiration concert. And we're going to lift up the spirits of young people and get people, my age and around that age, just excited about the fact that we can do it again, that we can show up, that we can show out, and we can make the difference, as we saw just a matter of a week or two ago.
Well, before we hear from Ariel, I just want to remind the reporters on the line that we are available for some questions. So if you want to drop those in the Q&A, we will work your questions into our conversation. We invite you to participate. This briefing is not only for our community, but also for the press. Ariel, continue. What else for the youth?
Yes, so like Jared and Miss Helen, Miss Butler just explained, these are some of the things that we're also doing, but we also want to make sure that we're organizing within our groups and outside. We know that all eyes are on Georgia and all hands are on Georgia, or at least want to be on Georgia, which is amazing and it's great. But you know, we're dealing with a pandemic, so how can other people who want to come into the state of Georgia help without necessarily leaving their home? So coming up with ways, moving out and mobilizing the unions, the organizations, the sororities, the fraternities, my own sorors, you know, the 20 ways where you can help from where you are, whether that's text banking and sitting there while you're eating your Thanksgiving dinner and just clicking away, texting to hundreds of individuals in Georgia. And then one thing you can do starting off is, you know, helping, going down your list who you got in Georgia. Hey, we're depending on you in Georgia. You know, we're not in Georgia, but one of these things that, just like Jared mentioned, people are now realizing by seeing the numbers, just how much their vote matters and how important it is. But also by hearing that right now, Georgia is really what can change the United States. So by mobilizing and realizing that just on a bigger scale, not just about what you see right here in front of you within our state, but realizing that it's even a bigger issue when it comes to the country, and having other individuals in other states saying, we're depending on you. We need you to get out and vote and mobilize, and mobilizing from the outwards in. That's another way we're going to tackle getting people back out for up until January 5th, getting them out for the election.
Thank you for that. And it also gives me an important cue before we bring in Felicia, and that is please go to the website, the People Agenda, Georgia Stand Up. They have opportunities for you to volunteer, for you to donate, for you to donate, for you to donate. In case you missed it, you can donate. We definitely need you to volunteer as well. All right, Felicia, take us home.
So,
We can.
so let me say, I think I want to bring to everyone's attention that Georgia, to my knowledge, is not typically a battleground state. So it is not a state where people are accustomed to being inundated. And that's inundated with people coming in to organize, inundated with nonstop commercials that go far beyond the edge, inundated during a pandemic, during a super holiday season. So we have Thanksgiving, we have Christmas, we have New Year's, we have a pandemic, and now we have the entire country focused on Georgia. So that is, while that should be a wealth and plethora of resources, yes, indeed. But the challenge for those of us that do this year round, year after year, is to break through that noise to move our people to the poll, because so we have to also battle what I would call a little bit of election fatigue. So what we're asking is that as people are doing their virtual phone banking, make it personal and real. Take the time to message individual to individual to let them know why somebody in Georgia getting out to vote is meaningful to somebody in Michigan or Pennsylvania or California. Make it real, more personal, real connections, and where somebody gives their word, I can count on you. With text messaging, I don't know about other folks, but it's raining text messages. So I'm encouraging people that are out of state, text who you know, and text who you know. They don't have to be in Georgia. Text who you know where you are that may know somebody in Georgia. But what we need is personal contact. People need to be touched. And the last thing I want to say is, as we are out canvassing and doing events, we are also doing a COVID care check-in. So as important as this election is, we have yet another opportunity over the holiday season to check in on our community, to find those pain points. So Deborah Scott had the turkey idea, and I was like, turkeys, ooh. But a turkey giveaway enables us to tap in and touch. So touch in the time of COVID is something that we are incorporating in our outreach. So to make that knock on the door far more important. So yes, we have to knock. And Helen Butler knows she's going to have us, she might have us in hazmat suits because Helen is super
That's right.
but we are going to knock. We are going to be masked up with our shields and our gloves, and then we are going to step back. But we are going to check in, and we got the QR code so people can actually do their absentee ballot requests. So it's all in. But I want to message to everyone to say we have to do more than we did for the general. So we
Absolutely.
are gearing up to do just that. And everybody, we don't want eyes. We want your eyes in your hands. So get your hands busy helping. Wherever you are, you can do something to help what we are doing right here in Georgia. And I always make an appeal for Clayton County, where we are 70% Black, where we are 190,000 registered voters, where we must increase our turnout even now. This is the place, and now is the time. So I make that appeal, and everybody saw us creep up on the screen. So we really are in a let's do it again mode. So hashtag Clayton, let's do it again.
Hashtag let's do it again. I'm living for that. And I'm hoping we can get Deborah Scott back on to get her as part of this. Oh, there she's coming back. Thank you. So before we do have a question from a reporter, but right before we get to that, I want to bring on Deborah Scott, who is the executive director for Georgia Stand Up and an important partner for BWR in the state of Georgia. And, you know, one thing we haven't touched on is, are we concerned about a rise in voter suppression? And what are some of the educational things that we're looking to do to kind of combat that? Let me get you off mute here so we can hear you. There we go.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. This is an important conversation and an important time here in Georgia. And so, yes, we're always concerned about voter suppression because we know that that's always in play. And so everything that Helen talked about and Felicia talked about that we're doing to kind of guard against voter suppression and making sure that every ballot is counted correctly is very, very important to our plans and what we're doing now. It's about watching our vote and making sure people are engaged in every step of the way. So part of what we're doing now is voter registration. The deadline is December 7th. So our youth are gearing up now to figure out other ways to capture this electorate that was not able to vote during the November election that are able to vote for this January election. So we have a whole Black Youth Vote. I'm sure Ariel talked about all the things that they're trying to do now collectively with Jared and Mary Pat. So we're excited about that. But in addition to that, we're also doing voter care. And we look at voter care in a number of ways. One, we did voter care at the ballot box, at the ballots, at the precincts to make sure that people stood in line and that they stayed in line. So whether it was giving out their PPP and their mask, hand sanitizer, a snack, we also did party at the polls. So we know that the line should not be really long during the election day on January 5th, but we are concerned about the lines during early vote. And as we're trying to get people to vote early and to drop off their ballots in the box and to mail their box, we want to monitor every aspect of this. So we're gearing up. We have our phone bank, which started yesterday. We did over 1.6 million calls and texts during this last cycle. So we are training our phone bankers now. They started yesterday. We're starting our canvas today and just have a lot going on. One of the things that we're excited about is really the opportunity to really let the youth lead in this moment and really giving them a budget so that they can do what they need to do to reach their peers. Some of us are active on social media, others are not, but we know that the Black Youth Vote have ways in which to talk to their peers. And so we want to give them space and grace for them to talk to their own peers. And so
Yeah.
whether it's TikTok or whether it's party at the polls, whatever they want to do, we want to support that, because that all goes into supporting the next generation and organizing, strategizing, and mobilizing.
Well, let me tell you, they have represented you well, and they have definitely let us know. I want to go to our reporter question here. Is there a plan to continue your momentum for upcoming elections and initiatives, not only in Georgia, but expanding training for other states to implement similar plans? Absolutely. You know, I'll take the first part of this. The National Coalition works with partners all over this country, but we want to stay focused on some of the things happening here in Georgia. So I'm gonna go to Helen. What are some of the training opportunities that may be coming up in Georgia? And also touch on that voter suppression, because I can't let that voter suppression go and not get your input.
Well, I can say, I think if you ever look at who has been on lawsuits, it's been the People's Agenda a lot, because we try to protect the right to vote, because that is critical to our mission. And so, Holly, we will again be doing training for our election protection monitors. We do a lot of training for them to be able to go out. We build relationships with all of the 159 elected officials. They know about our program. They know what is involved in it. They know we train our people. They are aware what they will be wearing at the polling locations, so they don't get turned away. So they know that we've been working with them. And so all of our people that we train for doing canvassing, we train them. And as Felicia said, I'm going to make sure every person out there is suited up in hazmat if I have. I actually have safety directors for each of the offices that we operate across the state, that they take temperatures, they make sure that everyone is wearing masks, that we offer PPE equipment to voters because we want them to be safe. When we're out monitoring at polling locations, if the people that are working, the poll workers don't have equipment and they need it, we give it to them. Because in this past election cycle, while we were talking about to the elected officials asking, what do you need additional? They told us they needed additional PPE equipment. So we, with all the organizations, gathered up that PPE equipment and sent it to them. So those are some of the kinds of things that we're doing. But no matter what our people do, they're trained to do voter registration. We actually have a quality control process that we follow to make sure that the people that we register get on the rolls and they're able to exercise their right to vote without being kicked off, put on a pending list, or requiring some additional information. So everything we do requires a training process to it, because we want to make sure that when we talk to voters, they can feel trusted that the information we're giving them is accurate. And when we don't know it, we say we don't know it, but we'll get you the answer. And that's the way we operate.
Well, amen to that. Let me tell you. So we have another question from the media. What is the estimate of the voters who are registered and didn't vote on November 3rd? And then I'll ask the follow-up question after that. So I'm going to go to Felicia, because I know you've been looking at this specifically for Clayton County, and then I'll let the others answer. Felicia.
Absolutely. So the voter turnout in Clayton County, notwithstanding our dramatic appearance on the horizon and getting, moving votes over the hill, but our turnout was only 58%. So being a county with almost 200,000 registered voters and a turnout that, we're reaching for at least 70%. So 70% is our minimum goal. And during a runoff, where typically, particularly Black voter turnout, usually takes a deep dive with a runoff. However, this time, like I said, all eyes are on Georgia. So we feel very confident with additional resources and all the support pouring in that we can actually move that turnout at least 10 percentage points. There are other places around the state and even around Metro Atlanta that did better, did their norm. So and scanning, I'm not seeing places that outperformed, and Helen can speak to this because we kind of have looked through, but a number of places actually were equivalent to at least 16 and sometimes 2012. Clayton was a little down from where we've been, and we have the most potential for the biggest difference. So
Right.
that I would toss to Helen because she can speak to some of the other areas that she has to look statewide. I get to focus in Clayton.
Well, let's do it, Helen. She tossed right to you.
Well, specifically, the overall state turnout was about 71% turnout rate. In terms of other areas of the state, like Felicia, you had it right on, that there were areas that exceeded 71% turnout rate. My little county itself had a 75% turnout rate, but there were others that didn't. So on an average, you come up with 71. In terms of people that didn't vote, I know for specifically for while we don't have the Black demographics yet, but I know that we are hoping that it is much better than in 2018 or 2016 when we had almost 800,000 people, Black people who were registered to vote but didn't show up to vote. So those kind of numbers we're gathering now because we just certified our election. And so we'll be able to get that information and drill down into the demographics of it. But overall, the turnout rate was 70 to 71%. And in the counties where we're located in Target, it was above the 65% turnout rate. Some got over, some got less, but we averaged 65, 67%. So we're doing good. And all I'm saying, let's do it again.
Yes, hashtag do it again. We got our hashtag. We're gonna roll with it. So I'm gonna go to the next one, and Deborah Scott, if you could chime in here, and that is what's the follow up to it? Like, how different are your GOTV efforts looking without access to schools and COVID restrictions? And this is thinking about how we're reaching out to high school students and getting them that are eligible to vote by the runoff.
Yeah, so first of all, we are contacting all of the counties and asking if they could help us identify those 17 and a half and 18-year-olds that will be 18 by the election. And then because they're delivering school lunches on the buses, I see the question about how do we get to them if we can't get to them, if you will. So we're going to put some materials on the buses as well, so that as they're passing out the free and reduced lunch, that they can also get the information about how to register. We are sending out the QR code as well as the online voter registration link, so that to the school systems and to our union partners as well, so that they can reach those teachers and those students so that they can get registered to vote. And we're going to have a little contest to see which school can get the most registered and do a reward for the school. In addition to that, we want to meet young people where they are. And so we are registering to people to vote again starting yesterday at the MARTA stations. And we're going to the stops that we know that there are more young people at, and then creating events or going to where people already are. So if people are already going to the grocery store, if they're already going to get their COVID testing or free groceries or free turkey giveaway, we meet people where they are. And because we have the QR codes on our big signs, we're able to just hold up the signs and they can just click on it with their phones and take it right to registration. So we have to be creative about doing this in a safe way. Even when we're doing door knocking, we're asking people to step back when somebody opens up the door. We have our gloves and mask on, and we're just trying to keep it as safe as possible. And even as Helen said, even in our office, we only allow 2 or 3 people in each office. We're separating, we're making sure that people are safe wherever we are, because we know whether it's the virus or voter suppression, nothing is going to stop Black women from voting.
Hashtag do it again. Do it
Hashtag
again.
do it
Okay.
again.
I've got one more press question, and then I'm going to ask what people can do and what the plan moving forward is. The last question I have from the press is about formerly incarcerated people and do we have any data on formerly incarcerated people? And do we know what may have been motivating them in this election cycle?
Well, I know there are a lot of organizations that we work with that do actual voter registration in the jails. We've done it. We did it as well as we actually have them fill out their absentee ballots at the same time so that they can exercise their right to vote. And so where those jail facilities will allow us in, we actually go in and work with them to give them voter registration forms, to actually give them absentee ballots as well, so that they can exercise their right to vote too. So there's a little coalition that is formed around restoration of rights in Georgia. So we don't have ballot initiatives like other states do, but we work behind the scenes to work with our sheriffs. That's why it's critical to have sheriffs that are open to allow people to exercise their right to vote. So we work with those sheriffs and those departments that will allow us to actually come in. For those who are eligible, and I want to make sure I say that for those who are eligible,
absolutely,
exercise their right, then we do that.
Absolutely. Yes, go right ahead, Felicia.
Deborah, Helen, would you all say something about if somebody's ex-offender has paid their fines, doesn't owe anything, then what happens?
Well, in Georgia, the right to vote, if you've served your sentence, that includes your fines, doesn't include fees or restitution. You don't have to satisfy that. You can actually register to vote. All you have to do is fill out a voter registration form. We're asking people because the Secretary of State's office had some confusion around what that requirement was, is that they get the certificate from their probation officer or from the parole Department of Community Services and attach it with their voter registration form so that there's no problem involved in it. But if they don't have it, they can actually supply it later, because it's just like photo ID. You can supply your ID at the time you register or at the time you vote.
Right. Absolutely. Well, ladies, this discussion has been amazing. And I want to just say one thing that has been very clear is that we are not siloed in Georgia. You all are doing an amazing job of working together. And I appreciate not only the work that you're doing, but for lifting up all of those Black women and the Black women leading organizations in Georgia to make this happen. So you already know where we have to end. There are thousands of people watching us right now, and more will watch the replay. So we got to leave them with some marching orders. Here's the question. People want to know, what can they do to help? So give me 2 clear ways people can support the work in Georgia. I'm going to start with Helen.
Okay, donate.
donate. Absolutely.
Donate is one. There are some people that are coming to Georgia. We're advising this. I have an increase in COVID. So if you want to come to Georgia, please be safe and fold into these groups that are on the ground that are doing the work. The other thing, I'm sure others will talk about phone banking and texting. I'm going to put a plug in for, we always need election protection monitors. We have hotlines that you can help man from afar. It's a virtual command center, so you can be a part of that, and we'll train you how to help us with our election protection activities. So I'm going to leave it for others to talk about other things.
Felicia, let's go to you.
Okay, you're going to me while I'm looking for other. So I put in the chat the link to the People's Agenda. That's the best, quickest, direct way. There's a donate button there. I'm going to put in the @blue thing there. I know Deborah has already put hers in, or Ariel did. So number one, I'm saying yes, giving resources helps. It makes a big, big difference. And we focus on women and reach the whole community. We definitely have our young people, the resources flow to them as well. So I'm doing a big, if I had three things, 1 and 2 are give money. And then number 3, as I said earlier, we are in a care community moment. So reach in and check in on people here. Georgia, all eyes are on Georgia. Hearts and minds need to be here too. And we mean that everywhere. So for the Black community, the VIP thing of this moment is to check in. So when you check in and everybody's cool, tell them, well, who you know in Georgia? Call them and make sure they voted. So that's my ask. And I'm tossing it, Deborah Scott.
All right.
All right.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to do what we do and toss it to the next generation. Ariel, I know you put in the chat what we're giving out to people, about 20 ways that people can get involved. So can you give us some of those?
Yes, so like Ms. Scott said, we've included in the chat the 20 ways that people can get involved from where they are, whether that's making remote phone calls, doing remote texts, robocalls, PSAs, recruiting and training other teams. Again, organizing our Divine Nine groups and other organizations, adopting walks, holiday cards. We're about buying Black. So if you got to buy Black holiday cards, hand write them and send them to people to put our information of all the ways you can register to vote. Here's where you can get your absentee ballot, all of that. Adding that little personal touch, like Ms. Helen said, we're in the season of COVID, but there are still ways that we can touch each other without touching each other. So we're going to include those, and join our social media campaigns. Follow, when in doubt, just ask. Follow all of these Georgia and these Black-led, women-led organizations, and go to their donate page, go to their social medias, and follow, keep in touch, support. And if you're not here in Georgia, telling your friends that you know in Georgia and supporting and helping remotely.
Well, we started with the young people. We're going to end with the young people. Jared, take us out. What to do? What are our 2 things?
Yeah, I guess 2 things that you can do to help support Black Youth Vote Georgia is number 1, to follow us on Instagram and on Facebook at Black Youth Vote Georgia. We'll be updating people on everything that we've got going on. And then secondly, to be on the lookout for when we're coming to your city as part of our Canvassing Caravan Tour. Again, we will be coming to Atlanta starting on the 28th. And after Atlanta, we'll be going to LaGrange, Albany, Macon, Athens, Valdosta. So if you know any young people that live in those cities, be sure to shoot us a message on social media and let us know. And we love to interact and engage with them, as we'll need them to help us mobilize other young people in those specific 7 cities. And so those are the 2 things that people can do to help us mobilize.
We got a lot of work to do, but we are ready and geared up for what? Hashtag let's do it again. So listen, thank you all so much for being a part of this very powerful panel. We have given folks the information, and now we have given folks the charge. We're going to end with our fearless leader, who I'm bringing in now. Thank you so much for being a part of this panel. And Melanie, I'm kicking it to you. Thank you for letting me moderate.
Oh, hi. Thank you, Holly. Can we give Holly a high five, shout out? And Holly, hit that tune.
Okay, I got it. Keisha's geared up and got it ready for us.
Yes, I love to do it again, ladies and gents. Thank y'all so much. It was just an honor and a pleasure, right, to have you all pull out of this this moments to share. It was really, really important, Georgia. I know you know it, but for the people out there, say people in the front and the people in the back, yelling back to you all, we got to do it again. It's Georgia, but Georgia, so goes the nation right now. You all have it in your hands, and we are with you. National Coalition is with you. I'm with you. My family, my nieces and nephews are with you, right? I mean, and it's a family affair. what's going on in Georgia. And we know that. We know our people took chances, took our lives in our hands to vote, whether it was early vote or showing up on election day, and to get our folks to do it again. I think the will is there, and we just want to just make sure that we took some time today also to say thank you for all you're doing, and we got your back. So Holly, can you close us out? And thank you for all of the team in the back, our background folks who pulled this off, Acacia Newsom, Vaughn and Angelo. And let's do this what? We're gonna
Do
close
it again.
You got us going, Helen. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all.
Let's do it in the morning. Sweet breeze in the summertime.